I've seen you before. For 12 years, you've seen me before. But the fact is, I'm a member of a minority. I'm one of the few people here that will be speaking who is not a human rights hero. I've never been in prison. I've never been beaten. My family's never been threatened. I've lived in a liberal democracy for almost 10 generations, probably 10 decades. I'm privileged and lucky. But I am concerned, I feel deeply, for those of you who've recounted today the horrors that you have endured, the persecution that members of your families have suffered, the deprivations that you have been part of your lives. All that you have lost concerns me and everyone here deeply. As Irwin Cotler said, this is the 75th anniversary of the adoption of the UN Charter in San Francisco. It was the product of creativity and foresightedness and large thinking on the part of Franklin Delano Roosevelt. He did not live to see the adoption of the Charter. It was signed on behalf of the United States by his successor, Harry Truman. And for a time, the words of the UN Charter resounded throughout the world. Human rights was a cause that the world celebrated. But that changed with time. Sure, there have been rebirths. When Jimmy Carter was president of the United States, human rights was in the forefront of U.S. foreign policy, not the realpolitik of Henry Kissinger or the realpolitik of those who have succeeded him. When the Berlin Wall came down in November 1989, we again celebrated human rights as Eastern Europe, the former Soviet Union, disappeared. We celebrated. We thought human rights have indeed arrived. It is the end of history. The promises of the French Revolution have now been fulfilled, and all the world will resound with the words of freedom and individual rights. But today, we know that's not the case. Where have we come from? Where are we, and where are we going to go? That's the question we are all asking ourselves. My crystal ball is a bit cloudy, but let me suggest the answer doesn't lie simply with the youth. Youth are always our activists, but let's ask ourselves, where have all the youth gone? For 70 years in my country, students in high school and in college have been taught the importance of human rights. But where are those persons today? They're in government, and they're doing nothing. Unfortunately, the youth become middle-aged, they become older, and the lessons of youth become less important to them. It is not the youth that we have to turn to create a better world. It's ourselves, each of us, regardless of our age. We've missed opportunities. Just think of it. What has happened? The Iranian Revolution. It didn't have to go into Shia extremism. There was the thought that with the overthrow of the Shah, Iran would become a democracy, that the Persian traditions would come to the forefront. But that revolution was co-opted by Shia extremism. And those in the Soviet Union, today Russia thought with Boris Yeltsin, there would indeed be democracy and freedom in Russia. But we now have Vladimir Putin and autocracy. It didn't have to be that way. We've missed opportunities. Think of Tahrir Square within the last decade. It didn't have to produce General Sisi. It could have produced a liberal democracy. We missed the opportunity, all of us, along the way. Those opportunities will reoccur, and it's up to us to create liberal democracies. Why liberal democracies? because they're the only safeguard of human rights. They're the repository of the notion that the individual has a sanctity, even a sovereignty, that all rights that are not explicitly given to the government are reserved to the people. The people shall reign. When that becomes the dominant political philosophy throughout the world, human rights will be ensured. We look at the United Nations and we say, where is the United Nations on human rights 75 years later? Let's be honest with ourselves. What is the United Nations? It's 193 countries. It isn't the United Nations, the city on the hill. It's 193 countries, the majority of which are authoritarian. How can you expect the United Nations to uphold human rights when a majority of its members do not uphold human rights? If you want to change, we have to change the countries that are the members of the United Nations, change their political systems. There is no shortcut. Otherwise, we'll be here 25 years from now lamenting the absence of human rights without governments that protect their citizens, that recognize the sanctity, even the sovereignty of individuals. Human rights will not be the mantra. Unfortunately, throughout history, going back to my own religious tradition, I was raised with the concept of freeing the imprisoned. Matira Surim, in Hebrew, as my friend from Darfur would tell you. It means to free those who are bound. That has been the cry for 2,000 years or longer. It has to be our cry, but it has to be more than our cry. It has to be our cause. We can't look to others. Don't look to the United Nations. Don't look to the youth. The youth are my grandchildren, and I wish them well. But the responsibility lies not with them, it lies with us and with the countries we come from. The political systems in your country, and in mine as well, become truly functioning liberal democracies, we'll have a better world. And I'll let you in on a non-political statement. The world cannot be safe for individuals. Human rights will not be the mantra of the majority of the people of the world unless my country, the United States, takes the lead. When it does, human rights have been advanced. Today, that's no longer the case. We met last night at the Canadian Embassy. There were representatives there from some 8 or 10 missions. There was no one from the United States. So it is to my country that I must look, to be the leader on behalf of free people everywhere. If the United States takes the lead, if it responds when the Canadian ambassador is expelled from Riyadh, when it speaks out when Mr. Khashoggi is murdered in Istanbul, when it speaks out when your father, your brother, your sisters, your loved ones are imprisoned, we can truly have in our lifetimes a better world. So as to my own country I look, not the United Nations, but the United States of America, to take its rightful place as the leader on behalf of human rights for citizens, individuals everywhere. Thank you so much.